surrendered my life to his leadership and actually wanted him to change me and wanted him to direct the way that I lived. I just thought the story was pretty interesting. And I thought what it meant to be a Christian was to know the story. What it meant to be saved was to know the story. And that's not the case. I wish, when I was your age, that I would have surrendered my life to Jesus. Because it would have saved me from a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. You remember when we talked about finding your value and your identity in other things besides God the other day? That was the first day. I used to find my value and my worth in the approval of my friends. I had these like 5 or 6 friends. We would hang out at North Park every day playing basketball. After school, you go to North Park, you play basketball. And ever since 4th grade, we'd be out like all the time. We'd ride our bikes to Dollar General with like $5 in cash and just buy so much candy, it was ridiculous. And we would just eat it all. I loved my friends. And we actually grew up kind of like in the church together, and we were going to camps like this together, but none of us had actually surrendered to the leadership of Jesus. We'd never decided to follow Jesus. And when we got into high school, and some of the people in black shirts, they know what I'm talking about. When you get into your freshman year of high school, the cost of what it takes to be liked and to be approved of becomes much more heavy of a cost. And I wanted so desperately to be liked. That's where I found my worth. And so I actually, what it cost to be liked in high school was stuff like drinking alcohol and doing drugs. And for guys, it was like treating women in a way that's not okay. It's not right. And I started stepping into that life because I wanted to be liked so badly. If I would have followed Jesus, I would have lost the approval of my friends, really. And I got into a mess of a life. A mess. And at the end of that, I mean, I was in like my senior year, and I ended up getting caught at a party, and I had stolen some stuff, and I was in a mess. And at the end of that, I thought what I was doing was preserving my happiness, right? Because I wanted my friends to like me. That's what it meant to be happy. And by the end of it, I had no joy. I had no meaning, no purpose. My life was empty. And it was in that place where I started to think more about Jesus. And I started to read I started to read the Bible much more intentionally. And wanting to know who this was, who this man Jesus was, and what he said about me, what he thought of me. And that was the season when I realized that I had sinned. I'd never like fully comprehended that before, that I had sinned. I had broken God's heart. I had disappointed him. And I was deserving of death. But, he knew the way that I was going to live. He knew the things that I would do to betray him, and yet he still came to save me. He still came to die in my place. And he wanted to restore me. He wanted me back. He wanted a relationship with me. That was crazy to me. And I gave my life to him 7 years ago, and I'm telling you, not a day has gone by when I regretted it. Not a day under his leadership have I regretted that. Life is so much better in relationship with Jesus. How will you respond to this good news? Because you always respond to this good news about Jesus. Some people think it's interesting, it's a nice story, but they don't actually believe it. Some people think it's not actually true. Some people think that it is true, but they struggle to let go of their control of their own life and give it to him. Some people just say, take my life, I want you to be my king. How will you respond? I'm going to give you 2 different opportunities to respond to this good news. By standing. And I'm going to ask you to stand, not because we want to embarrass you. I'm not even going to ask you to say anything. I'm not going to ask you to say your name and your story. We're not going to have you come up here. It's because we want to celebrate with you. This is a decision that's worth celebrating. If I had cake and ice cream and stuff, we wouldn't even play our sports. We would just throw a party. we would get some lights and some dance music in here. This is something worth celebrating. And so it's not a decision for you to just make personally and for nobody to know about it. It's a decision for you to tell everybody about so that we can celebrate with you, so that we can clap and cheer and praise God for what He's done. That's why we're asking you to stand. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you the 2 ways that you can respond to this good news about Jesus. 2 ways that you can respond to Jesus. And then after I explain both ways, you can think about what He might be leading you to do. Or maybe if you're not ready, we don't want to push you. And then I'm going to invite you to respond to 2 ways. Here's the first way you could respond this morning to Jesus. The first way to respond is for those of you who at one point, possibly even a long time ago, said yes to Jesus. But since that time, you have walked away from His leadership in your life. And you have taken back control of your own life. And you've started to walk in your old ways. Maybe at one point you prayed a prayer, or you raised your hand, or maybe even you stood, but you didn't fully understand who Jesus was or the decision that you made. And since that time, you have chosen to live your own life again. Today you will have a chance to turn from your own way and surrender your life to Him again, to recommit to Him. The second way that you could respond is for those of you who have never before believed and trusted in this good news before. For those of you who have never before decided to trust Him with your life. Maybe you have even been in church for a long time, but you've never made that decision. Today you're going to have the chance. If you are convinced that you are a sinner, and that you've betrayed God, and you're deserving of death, and yet He came to save you, today you'll be able to respond to that message. I'm just going to give you guys like 30 seconds. Can everybody just bow their heads and just be really quiet? And just think about it. Maybe pray, talk to God. Ask God, how are you leading me to respond to you today? What are you saying? What are you doing in me? Okay. Here's the first chance to respond. If you, before today, have said yes to Jesus, but you've walked away from His leadership in your life, and you want to recommit and surrender your life to Jesus again today, would you stand? Would you stand? Thank you. Thank you. You stand. You have more of a chance. Stay standing. Stay standing if you've made that choice. Stay standing. Let's go crazy. This is awesome. Congrats, everybody. Okay. If you're standing, just afterward, I'm going to want to talk to you for just like 30 seconds, if that's okay, John. Is that going to be okay? Awesome. So afterward, so go ahead and take a seat, everybody. Congratulations on your new surrendered life to the leadership of Jesus. You'll never regret it. Promise you. The second way that you can respond to Jesus is that if you have never before said yes to Him, if you've never before believed in Him, maybe even you've known the story and you've been in church for a long time, but you've never pledged that you know the story to be true about you and that you know that He came to save you. And today, for the first time after hearing the good news of life and hope, you want to follow Jesus and become a Christian. Would you stand? Congratulations. guys too, all of you as well. I'm going to want to talk to everybody that responded. I'm going to want to talk to, maybe just outside those back doors, just for a few seconds. I want to be able to pray with you. And congratulations on your new life, your new relationship with God. Guys, do you understand that in our midst right now, death itself was conquered? And that new people were created right in front of our eyes. New creations right in front of our eyes. Brothers and sisters in God's kingdom were just invited in front of our eyes. Amazing. Let's go ahead and pray for all that God has done.